Two surprising Bears players actually get praise heading into training camp in Roshan Johnson and Tremaine Edmonds. And this isn't the first time this offseason we've heard some praise thrown towards those players. We're going to take a look at that. Plus, Tyreek Stevenson and his future with the Chicago Bears and why the Bears getting Joe Tuni looks even better after Trey Smith's new deal. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And this is not the first time that we've heard some praise thrown towards Roshan Johnson. Now, I don't know if that's based off the potential what he could bring in a Ben Johnson coached offense, or if maybe there's something that's being shown there behind the scenes that we don't know, right? Roshan is such a polarizing topic for the Chicago Bears fans because almost any time his name comes up, you're guaranteed to get Bears fans like, Roshan sucks. Roshan is. Like, are you there to get Bears fans like, no, Roshan, like we just had a phone call from Darius, I think last week, in which he talked about like Roshan being a player, if he can get more consistent touches, the impact that he can make, right? There's no doubt that Roshan has shown some promise. 4.3 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns, in his rookie year, before, what happened there. You look at 2.7 yards per carry and 150 yards, and things like that. So when it comes down to it, Roshan has shown some things. It is what it is when it comes down to that. But when you talk about players that can really make an impact for the Chicago Bears, Roshan is not a player that you necessarily think into that. Now, this article does come from Bears Goggles On. It talks about Roshan and the potential impact that he can make here with the Chicago Bears this upcoming year. And he does say that Roshan is ready to move on from a sophomore slump to a massive 2025 campaign. And here's the thing, right? Roshan is a player that has potential. And I know that that's something that is more difficult for some Bears fans at surface level to see that with Roshan when it comes down to it, right? When you look at Roshan Johnson's production, it has been hurt at certain times, right? He's 225 pounds. He's shown glimpses of being able to be a guy that can be a dual threat out that backfield, as well as his side, even though having a 4.5 40-yard dash in the 2023 NBA Combine, he combines strength and speed, right? And so now I think when you look at him, there's some that try to compare Roshan to what David Montgomery did under Ben Johnson. Now, I'm not there to make those comparisons. I'm talking about the article here, right? But I do think that Roshan has the ability to just be a stable running back as far as that what he can do. To Darius' email or voicemail that he left a little while ago, just calling that if you give Roshan 20 touches a game, like he's going to be a guy that gets you over 4 yards per carry. He's going to be a guy that gets you some decent production in that time. And Roshan has shown a bit of the flashes, but much like with Jaquan Brisker, Roshan has not been able to stay healthy. That's a thing there, right? He did have 6 touchdowns last year in an offense that wasn't all that great. The yards per carry were down to 2.7 yards per carry last year, though. That's not good at all. That's down from 4.3 his rookie year. But it depends. Like, I see Roshan having a role here. No doubt about that. I think that Roshan can help the team, especially while the Bears' backfield in the running back room isn't necessarily the best, right? But as I've talked about multiple times, he, as well as DeAndre Swift, are a threat to lose some carries to Kyle Monangai. If Monangai comes in and he's shown to be the electrifying running back that he was in college. So, and I get why, people are trying to compare like Roshan and say maybe he can be a little bit of what Gibbs brings, or a mix between that and David Montgomery. Yeah, that's part of what the Bears are hoping for when they drafted his ass, right? But the question now is, can DeAndre Swift and Roshan Johnson be good enough behind an offensive line that is drastically improved to be able to be a solid running back room? And I do think that that's going to be there. I do think that Roshan is going to benefit from this new offensive line. As a guy that is going to run between the gaps, he's going to benefit from that if he can stay healthy. For a guy like Roshan, I think health is a big factor into what he can bring. Of course, whether you look at him, how good he can be or not, he's here. And he's going to be the running back, too, to start off the year, right? I do think that Ben Johnson, as well, as a guy that can be creative enough and can look at the skill set of Roschon. He's going to try to use that skill set the best that he can. If Roschon can't be productive under Ben Johnson, then I think we all know what that means then. Like, even in his third year, I'm not saying he's going to be cut or anything like that, but he's definitely going to be less and less prioritized. So this is an opportunity for Roschon to come in under a new coach, right, that can use the skill set that he has there, absolutely, and have an opportunity to show a little bit of something. And we'll see if he can get that done. Roschon is a talented player. Health and bad offensive line. And, here's the thing. I know that people are going to take this as some hugely negative, but I'm gonna be pretty blunt here. Having a running back on your roster that is maybe more offensive line dependent that you wanted, meaning that, hey, I can be really good for you if you have a good enough offensive line. That's not necessarily a bad thing, especially while you don't have, or you're still trying to find the running back that can be good regardless. And so as the Bears don't have that, yeah, okay, Roschon, DeAndre Swift. Maybe they're a little bit more offensive line dependent than what we want our ultimate perfect running back one to be. But here's what I'll tell you. Okay, cool, but we've upgraded the offensive line, and upgrading the offensive line does more for just the running back room. You want to have a good offensive line for your quarterback. You want to have a good for just the backbone of your offense. So you have some running backs that are more offensive line dependent. I'm not going to knock that right now where the Bears are. Like, yeah, going forward, you want running backs that can do it regardless. You want running backs that can be good and productive regardless. That's not a problem to want that, but it's also not a problem to say, hey, right now, our running backs are good. Are they good? Are they better than what they would be because of the state of our offensive line? Okay. I care about the production. I don't give a damn how you get it done. I give a damn that you get it done. That's where we are right now. We could worry about the luxury of having some running back that can get you 1,600 yards behind me and Steve-O being your offensive line. Great. I'll be happy as hell when we get that guy. But guess what? We're not at that place yet as a team. That's a luxury. So if we have lunch pail running backs that have to go out there and get the job done by being tough, being smart because of their coach's scheme and the offensive line, that's not a problem. That's not a bad thing to be at because we have the offensive line now that we're going to be able to rely on. I think that's the thing that you're looking at there. And, we'll see what's going to happen with that one. But in talking about that offensive line, right, yesterday, Trey Smith got paid. And a guy that many people were once predicted or hoping that he was going to sign to the Chicago Bears. We covered those talks a lot. Trey Smith the dude got paid. Shout out to Trey Smith for getting his coins. Like, I want to be clear there. Shout out to him for going out there and getting the deal that he needed to get done. But, people have now brought up and raised, like, all right, with this now Trey Smith deal that happened and him going there on a 4-year, $94 million extension with $70 million being guaranteed, he's the highest paid guard now in the NFL. And, a lot of people thought that was going to happen even in free agency. Shout out to the Chiefs for being able to keep their guy. But now, what does that mean for the Joe Tuni trade? Now, people have now made this over the cap, and other outlets have now used this to say that the Joe Tuni trade looks even better after getting this, right? When you look at Smith last year, he finished with a PFF grade of 75.1, which is amazing. 14th best in the league is what Trey Smith did last year. That's amazing. It's good. You cannot take away from that, right? But when you look at also Joe Tuni and his prospect in that as well, right? 80%, which is the 80 PFF grade, which is the 7th best in football, right? And so now you look at somebody like Joe Tuni, who's much older than Trey Smith, make no mistake about it. But for what the Bears ended up giving up to get Joe Tuni into this team, it looks even better. It looks even better when it comes down to it, right? All 17 games played for Joe Tuni last year. All pro when it came down to it as well. Top 10 offensive player of the year finish also when it came down to it. And, his grades were better than Trey Smith's. And they traded Joe Tuni in part to be able to keep Trey Smith. And so, and I'm sure that's going to work out for the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. Super Bowl team. They can do what they need to do, right? And age plays a role into that as well. Trey Smith is 6 years younger than Joe Tuni. Make no mistake about it. And people have rightfully so asked, like, where's the slide going to start for Joe Tuni? And maybe that does, but he's shown himself to be a guy that even if that slide does start kicking in now, which I think if you look at his grades, maybe he's already started kicking in a little bit, that he's still a productive guy and he's going to bring some leadership on that offensive line for the Chicago Bears, right? And so with now the Chiefs paying Smith $25 million per season, right? And you look at Joe Tuni's cap hit, it's $21 million over that time. I think that Joe Tuni, the Bears got a really good deal in Joe Tuni, and they're both smart. There's the smart deals for smart players and good players overall. And I think that right now, Joe Tuni is in a spot where he definitely helps the Chicago Bears team for now and in the future, with how now having his presence there is going to help the development over the younger guys that we have in the wings as well. You look at Ozzie Trapillo, Darnell Wright, Kieran Amagaje, Theo Benedict, right? Like don't overlook that too. Like the leadership that he's going to bring and the mentorship that he can bring for young offensive linemen is going to be really big for a team like Joe Tuni. I mean, for a team like the Chicago Bears with Joe Tuni. Dan Rouchar needed and wanted Joe Tuni here. Caleb Williams needed Joe Tuni here. The Chicago Bears needed Joe Tuni here. So, while they did not make the free agent move and go out and get a Trey Smith, for example, and pay him that money, they still got Joe Tuni on a really reasonable deal without giving up huge assets when it came down for it. And I think the Bears have done an adamant job at bringing in and upgrading their offensive line. And Joe Tuni is a guy that is hugely important in that. Drew Dahman, Jonah Jackson. These are all guys that are going to help get the Bears where they need and want to be in 2025. And I, for one, can't find a reason to knock that. That's not a bad thing. So, I think overall, when you look at the deals and things that are happening around the NFL, the Bears upgraded their offensive line. They invested in their offensive line more than they have in any other period under Ryan Poles, with both draft capital, trades, and free agent capital, with the extensions that they signed Jonah Jackson and Joe Tuni to as well, and the deals they signed Drew Dahman to. They have invested in this offensive line. The biggest question that I've had there, and one that I keep, hitting on until we actually see it, is how well is the depth going to perform for this team? That's a huge question that I have here, but we'll see it. And then, in the last topic, talking about having running backs that are offensive line dependent, you need to be able to depend on that offensive line then, right? And the Bears have done a really good job at turning possibly one of their weaknesses into a strength in that offensive line and building an O-line that you can depend on. And that also includes sometimes your running game being better because of it, which, again, I'm not taking as a negative. So you guys can let me know how you feel on that down below. Another player on top of Roshan Johnson that got some praise that I know Bears fans are not going to want to hear, Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, talked about he was going over the league. He was looking at league executives, scouts, top 10 players at each position, and he ranked Edmunds as the 6th best off-ball linebacker in the NFL. Now, I know that that's something that a lot of Bears fans are going to look at and say, what? I'm saying this. Voters are mixed on Edmunds, whose production doesn't always match his physical tools. He's 6'5", 250 pounds with long arms and can move. Scouts tend to lean his way because of his scheme-transcendent traits. He's the prototypical. He has prototypical physique, athletic ability, and speed that you covet in an inside linebacker in today's game. An NFL personnel director said he can diagnose a play downhill in the box. He can play sideline to sideline and has the coverage ability to match up in zone and in man coverage. But production has been an issue for Edmunds, who hasn't made a Pro Bowl since 2020 and whose 3 tackles for a loss last season marked a career low, though his 8 pass deflections were his most since 2019. Smart, but not as instinctive as you hope, NFL coordinator said. If you put his ability with teammate TJ Edwards' instincts, you'd have an all-pro. And I think that last part of that blurb really is exactly how a lot of Bears fans view Edmunds, right? Edmunds is a guy that you can see that he has the ability. Now, some people have said, is he used in the wrong role here with the Chicago Bears? And now with TJ being the middle linebacker, maybe you're putting Tremaine in a place that's going to be more suited to what the skill set that he brings. And that's no doubt, right? Tremaine Edmunds is a stats versus eye test guy, right? The stats: 110 tackles, 8 pass deflections, 3 tackles for a loss, 3 quarterback hits, 1 sack, 1 interception, and a forced fumble in 17 games. Sounds on paper like a really good season. But then when you watch Tremaine Edmunds play and you watch the blown coverages, you see the missed tackles, you see the missed opportunities at tackles for a loss. When you see that and you pair that, that's where you get to the point where Bears fans are, is that they are overall disappointed in Tremaine Edmunds, right? And I think that's why like box score stats only tell a part of the story, and why watching games is hugely important to be able to look at it, right? You want to pair PFF grades, stats, advanced stats, whatever you want to look at, box score stats, and the eye test. You want to use a combination of all of that, right? But it does seem like Tremaine Edmunds, whether you're looking at him regressing or you're looking at him as a player that's not in the right scheme or right fit, this is really the year for Tremaine Edmunds to show that. You have Dennis Allen there, what do I always say with Dennis Allen? He's as creative defensively as Ben Johnson is offensively. So if anybody's going to find a way to best use Tremaine Edmunds, especially with how Dennis Allen likes to blitz cornerbacks, mix up between having your corners blitz and your linebackers drop back in coverage and keep the offenses on their heels by doing that, Tremaine is a guy that really could thrive in that system. He has the physical makeup that Dennis Allen likes in his linebackers. He has the coverage ability. He has the long arm. So seeing how Dennis Allen fluctuates between using a guy like Kyler Gordon run blitzing and pass blitzing and using a guy like Tremaine Edmunds more in coverage where he may be better suited to his skill set, that's going to be a sight to behold. Because if Dennis Allen can crack that code and find a way to get Tremaine to be a more consistent and better player, that's what's going to get you there, right? But I do think the Bears have already started to put themselves in a position to where if they do need to move on, they can. Ruben Hippolyte is here. Power Echols was drafted, great middle linebacker in college, right? Or he was signed as a UDFA, as Power Echols. So you now already have, especially with the $13 million you would save next season by cutting Tremaine, but we can't get to that without getting through this season. Tremaine has an opportunity to show what he can bring this season. And Dennis Allen is the guy that if anybody is going to be the Tremaine Edmunds whisperer and get Tremaine Edmunds to perform at the level that we thought we were getting when we signed him to that deal, Dennis Allen's the guy that's going to be able to do that. And so great to have the stats. You got to have the eye test to go with that. And that's really what it comes down to with Tremaine. Can he do enough things, right, to impact football enough for the Chicago Bears to be able to stave off some of that stigma and talk that's been around him that Bears fans have because we've seen and watched him play football and fell in some areas over the last couple of years for the Bears. That's what it comes down to. Can he do it? Let's hope so. I hope that he has that potential and has that ability to do it because Tremaine Edmunds that's better, of course, makes this team better. A Tremaine Edmunds that's more locked in makes Dennis Allen's scheme better, and he can look better in that scheme. So if Tremaine wants to remain with the Chicago Bears and figure that thing out, this is his best opportunity. If nobody else can get the best out of Tremaine Edmunds, Dennis Allen can. And so for the Bears, for Tremaine, for everybody involved, you should want to see Tremaine have a big season under Dennis Allen. Now, we'll see what happens there. This is a business as well. And the Chicago Bears have to do what's best for their team. They have to do what's best for their franchise. And if that means moving on from Tremaine Edmunds, it means moving on from Tremaine Edmunds. It'll be unfortunate, but if anybody can get the best out of Tremaine, it's going to be Dennis Allen. With the way that he likes to use and get creative in his systems and his schemes, all that would be the best for Tremaine Edmunds. If Dennis Allen can't do it, I don't know if anybody can at this point. And so, and that just is what it is. Hopefully you're not looking at a player that's already on the slide in what should be the prime of their career, but Tremaine just it's been a mixed bag. It's been a mix to bad since he's been here with the Chicago Bears. So now it's up to the Bears, it's up to Tremaine, it's up to everybody to find what's best going to be here. And maybe now a position switch, a scheme switch, those things could get the best out of Tremaine. And we shall see what's going to happen there. And the Bears are going to be viewing this one. And the Bears, that's what they should be doing. They should be looking at this situation in totality to figure out what's the best path forward. And if that means that Tremaine Edmunds offers that best path forward, great. If he doesn't, if it's questionable, if the fit's not there, then that's where we're going to be at as well, and it's going to suck. But hopefully we don't have to worry about that. Hopefully Tremaine is exactly what we need Tremaine Edmunds to be, and it's something that we're not even considering going forward, and we're just going to focus on the football and what he can bring on the field because Tremaine is still a player that can impact the game of football well for the Chicago Bears. It's just going to see how much of that is he going to be able to bring and do consistently for this Bears team in 2025. And so we'll see with that with Tremaine. I have my things with Tremaine Edmunds that I like. I have my things with Tremaine Edmunds I absolutely look at and say, hey, this is not something that could work here. But ultimately, it's just going to come down to what can happen. And we'll see what's going to happen there. But let me know your guys' thoughts down below. When you hear this in Tremaine and somebody giving actually Tremaine Edmunds praise on what he can be and bring for the Chicago Bears this year, does that surprise you as much as it surprised me? Let me know that down below. With that said, though, all right, let's move on to Tyreek Stevenson. Tyreek Stevenson, we've talked a lot about him over the last couple of days, how polarizing he is for some Bears fans, how some Bears fans like to talk about him as if he's terrible, he's not, right? But there's no doubt about it is that with the depth that the Bears have in that secondary and in their defensive backs is that, it could be to a point to where maybe paying Tyreek Stevenson isn't what's best for the Bears because you have young players and a scheme of players that can fit differently. And that's going to be the thing that comes down to it, right? Is that the Bears can only afford to spend so much at each position. You locked in Kyler Gordon. Jalen Johnson's getting paid. And so a guy like Terrell Smith, who competed with Tyreek Stevenson for that starting role when they both were rookies, is the drop off from Tyreek to Terrell something that, that it hurts your team as much as, or that's more beneficial if you save money. You have Zay Frazier that's in there as well, right? Now, I don't think that Tremaine is as long as he's on the Bears team, I think he's going to be a starter. But when you talk about the future with teams and talk about giving big money to players and future contracts, that's where you have to start looking at the value and added value based off what you have to pay a player, right? And that's been something that Ryan Poles has always kind of walked that line with and done pretty well with at times, right? And so that's the things you're going to look at for when it comes down to it, and we shall see. Tyreek Stevenson is a player that, we don't talk about in the same lights of like a Jaquan Brisker or anything like that, but it's coming up when it comes down to it. Jalen Johnson, 4 years, $76 million, right? When it came down to it. You look at the money that Kyler Gordon got as well. So when it comes down to it, yeah, if Tyreek Stevenson performs, you're gonna sign him to a big deal. If he performs at a level that you're looking at and like, hey, he offers us the best situation to be a winning football team, you're gonna keep Tyreek Stevenson around. But if you have another season of it being iffy, or the gap between him and Zay Frazier, the gap between him and Terrell Smith isn't that much, and then you factor in the money part of that, that's where you may have to start moving in and looking at different things for your football team. And, that's the difficult decisions that teams can make when they start winning. That's the thing. When you have too much talent or when you start winning, you can make those difficult decisions. But the situation around Tyreek Stevenson is gonna be interesting to watch, especially with Sauce Gardner and his deal, and the fact that cornerbacks are getting paid. And so if you're a starting caliber cornerback in this league, Gardner getting 4 years, $120 million, which makes Jalen Johnson's deal look even more of a steal for the Chicago Bears. But that's something that the Bears are going to have to look for. And you're going to see that not only through training camp, but through the season, and see how the Bears value that. And that's going to be a big proposition when this all comes down to it. But you guys can let me know how you feel on that part down below as well. We'll see what happens here when it comes to Tyreek Stevenson. I'm not as low on him as some Bears fans are, some Bears outlets are. I think Tyreek Stevenson is a really damn good cornerback in this league. But of course, you have to ask yourself, how much of that are you still willing to pay on? And so we shall see. Money is the great divider when it comes down to a lot of these situations. So let me know what you guys think and feel on that down below. Make sure you guys are following us at Chi Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Chi-Town up, Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.